Did the United States and China just bring their economic war to an end? Or are we witnessing the calm before an even bigger storm? Today, we are diving deep into the US-China trade truce that shook the world's headlines. On the surface, it looks like peace. But if you look closely, you'll see the cracks, the loopholes, and the hidden drama that might mean this is not peace at all. This could be nothing more than a carefully staged pause before round two of the biggest economic fight of our century. So stay with me until the end, because by the time this video is over, you'll know exactly what this truce really means for the US, for China, for the world, and even for you at home. To understand how we got here, we need to rewind the clock. For years, the US and China have been locked in what experts call a trade war. This was not a quick disagreement. This was a grinding battle fought with tariffs, sanctions, restrictions, and retaliation after retaliation. The US accused China of unfair trade practices, of manipulating its currency, of stealing intellectual property, and of using state power to tilt the playing field. China fired back, saying the US was trying to contain its rise, bullying its companies, and undermining its sovereignty. And the effects were not just in the halls of power, they were felt in real lives. American farmers in Iowa saw their soybean exports collapse when China slapped retaliatory tariffs. Tech giants in Silicon Valley worried about losing access to China's massive consumer base. Workers in Detroit watched supply chains shake. Meanwhile, in China, manufacturers struggled with higher costs. Exporters feared losing access to their biggest customer. And companies started feeling the pinch of tighter US rules. This wasn't just politics. This was a global earthquake. And just as markets and businesses braced for the worst, the two sides announced something surprising: a truce. Smiles, handshakes, and headlines declaring a new era of cooperation. But was it really cooperation, or was it a tactical timeout? So, what was this truce? After weeks of back-and-forth negotiations, both sides announced a deal. The United States agreed to delay or reduce certain tariffs, while China pledged to buy more American goods. This included agricultural products like soybeans and corn, energy resources like oil and gas, and even manufactured goods. At first glance, this looked like progress. The U.S. president claimed victory. Chinese officials claimed victory. Stock markets cheered and investors celebrated. But here's where things get interesting. Because when you read the fine print, this deal is filled with vague promises and half measures. China's pledge to buy more American goods? It came with no clear timeline, no specific enforcement, and no penalties if they failed. America's promise to reduce tariffs? It was selective, keeping plenty of tariffs still in place as leverage. And most importantly, the truce completely avoided the hardest issues, the deep issues, the reasons this trade war began in the first place. What about intellectual property theft? Ignored. What about forced technology transfers, where U.S. companies had to share secrets to operate in China? Not solved. What about massive subsidies to Chinese state-owned companies that undercut American competitors? Not addressed. What about the U.S. blocking China's access to advanced semiconductors and high-end technologies? Not touched. In other words, the so-called truce was like putting a bandage on a deep wound without stopping the bleeding. It looks neat on the surface, but the real problems are still there, waiting to burst open. So why would both sides agree to such a shallow deal? The answer is simple: pain. Both countries were hurting badly, and both leaders needed relief. In the U.S., tariffs had contributed to rising prices. Everyday Americans were paying more for basic goods. Inflation was already squeezing families, and a prolonged trade war threatened to make it worse. Politicians knew that voters would not stay patient forever. In China, the picture was equally tough. Economic growth was slowing, exports were shrinking. Foreign investors were beginning to wonder if China was worth the risk. The trade war was pushing global companies to move factories to Vietnam, India, and other countries. China could not afford to lose its reputation as the world's factory, so both sides had a strong reason to stop the bleeding. But notice something important. They didn't actually solve the core disagreements. They didn't build trust. They didn't compromise on the big issues. They just created breathing space. The U.S. leadership could return home saying, "We won concessions." Chinese officials could tell their people, "We stood strong." Both sides saved face. Both sides bought time. But here's the real danger. By not solving the root problems, this truce could actually make things worse. Because while both sides show smiles in public, behind the scenes, they are racing to prepare for the next round of conflict. In Washington, policymakers are doubling down on protecting America's technological edge. They are banning the export of advanced microchips, blocking Chinese companies from buying key technology, and pushing allies like Japan, South Korea, and the Netherlands to join in the restrictions. In Beijing, the government is pouring billions into its own industries. They are racing to build domestic semiconductor capacity, investing in artificial intelligence, green energy, and military technologies. Instead of bridging the gap, both sides are digging deeper trenches. This means that instead of a true peace, we may now be entering a cold economic war. A war not fought with bombs or soldiers, but with supply chains, markets, and innovation. The weapons are tariffs, sanctions, and restrictions. The battlefield is the global economy. And the prize? Dominance in the 21st century. But what does this all mean for you? For the average person watching this video, it means your life is already affected, even if you don't realize it. If you're in the United States, it means many imported goods you buy every day are more expensive than they would have been. From clothing to electronics, prices have climbed because of tariffs and uncertainty. If you're in China, it means more pressure to buy domestic products, fewer foreign goods on shelves, and slower economic growth. If you live anywhere else in the world, it means instability. It means markets that can rise or crash overnight depending on the latest headline. It means your local businesses paying more for raw materials. It means your investments facing new risks. This is bigger than soybeans, bigger than tariffs, bigger than trade deficits. What's happening between the US and China is a struggle over who sets the rules of the global economy, who controls the future of technology, who leads in artificial intelligence, in semiconductors, in green energy, and whoever wins this contest will shape not just their own future, but the world's future. So, where does that leave us? Right now, the truce is being celebrated in headlines. Leaders call it peace. But when you peel back the surface, you see it for what it really is. A pause. A halftime break in a game that is far from over. Both sides are catching their breath. Both sides are regrouping. And when the whistle blows, the second half could be even more explosive than the first. The question is not whether the conflict is over. The question is when the next clash will begin. Will it be over technology? Over Taiwan? Over markets in Africa and Latin America? Or will it quietly reignite through tariffs and sanctions when the promises of this truce fall apart? The truth is, nobody knows. But one thing is certain. The world's two biggest economies are locked in a rivalry that will shape the century. And a truce that avoids the real issues is not a solution. It's just the eye of the storm. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think this trade truce is a genuine step toward peace? Or do you think it's nothing more than a pause before something much bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'll be reading them and responding, because your voice matters in this conversation. And if you found this breakdown helpful and eye-opening, then make sure to hit that like button right now. It really helps the channel grow. And if you love deep dives like this into global events that actually impact your daily life, then don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss what is coming next. Because trust me, this US-China drama is far from over, and we'll be here to break it all down for you. Thank you for watching, thank you for your support, and I'll see you in the next video.